Good afternoon and welcome to the Society of Teachers of Family Medicine's first webinar on precepting and teaching physician. My name is Tom Van Sage and I'm STFM's Director of Online Education. Over the next six webinars, we'll be covering topics and challenges that preceptors face and demonstrate an innovative new resource, Teaching Physician, available at teachingphysician.com. Today's webinar is titled, What is Teaching Physician? And it will be led by Dr. Gretchen Dixon from the University of Kansas School of Medicine, Wichita. Dr. Dixon is also the Family Medicine Program Director at Wesley Medical Center in Wichita. KU was an early subscriber to Teaching Physician because they've got preceptors scattered throughout their state in rural geographic settings. Teaching Physician has been a great tool for Dr. Dixon to provide good educational curriculum to her preceptors. Today's webinar will cover the basics of Teaching Physician, and of course, at the end of our presentation, Dr. Dixon will be happy to answer questions. So take it away, Gretchen.
Okay, thanks, Tom. As Tom said, Teaching Physician has really been a very useful resource for us here at KU, and I'm happy to be able to provide a little bit of background today on some of the advantages and some of the features of Teaching Physician that might also work for you in your own medical education setting. If there are questions and we don't have a chance to answer them, I understand that staff will be able to contact you later to make sure that your question gets answered. So if we run out of time on the webinar, we'll definitely make sure that we help you out with whatever issues that you're having. So let's talk a little bit about what is Teaching Physician. Some of you may be thinking, isn't that the newsletter that gets attached to my email every month? And if you remember, there used to be an electronic newsletter that I know that we used as a way of staying in contact with our preceptors. It was a great resource that had clinical guidelines in it, but also had teaching pearls, and we could use it as a way of just sending an email out to preceptors saying, here's an attachment that might be helpful in your practice. But that's not what Teaching Physician is anymore. The newsletter has actually gone away. It no longer exists, and Teaching Physician is an electronic subscription-based website that we're going to explore today. When the Teaching Physician website was created, it was really created for community preceptors in mind. So those folks who take a student in their office, maybe frequently or maybe only occasionally, but have a teaching role that's important for our medical students and residents. Sometimes these folks don't have a lot of faculty development resources provided to them, and so this was a way to sort of provide asynchronous faculty development to our community preceptors. When we get into Teaching Physician, what you'll find there is a lot of things. There are videos that can be used that show different techniques. There are answers to frequently asked questions. There are tips on the website. And there are what I call brief, just-in-time content that's really relevant to precepting. So a one-pager of the most important facts to know about the microskills or about giving feedback, so that a preceptor who is getting a student at 9 o'clock on Monday morning can look at 8:50, can log into Teaching Physician and review, what do I need to do to be able to give this person feedback on their physical exam? And then, of course, if they want more information, there's links to the articles that really defined and provided some of the content. So if you're interested in microskills and you want more than just the quick just-in-time type content, you can link to the original articles that describe what the microskills were and how they were developed. As Tom mentioned, the website is www.teachingphysician.org. So let's take a look at what the website actually looks like. So what you can see here is if you type in Teaching Physician, this is the screen that you'll see. And there's lots of information on here that can be helpful to you. One of the first things you'll notice is that there's a link to become a preceptor. So let's suppose that you're out in the community and as a family physician you say, wouldn't it be great to have students or residents come to my office and work with me? But I don't know how to do that and I don't know how to form those connections. Well, perhaps I stumble on the Teaching Physician website and I realize that I want to become a preceptor. If you click on that link, you'll be directed to a form that includes a place for you to provide your contact information, as well as some videos that really talk about the benefits of being a community preceptor. When you enter your name and email address there, that information will go to STFM, and they've worked really hard to make connections between those preceptors and residency programs or medical schools in the area that may be looking for community preceptors. We don't have a lot of people who necessarily come in this way, but it is nice to know that if a preceptor stumbles on the site, they can be connected to people who may be looking for their expertise. You also are able to download, as you see from the top right-hand corner, a free information on the rewards of teaching. I found this document really helpful for our preceptors to remind them why they started volunteering to teach in the first place. It includes things that we all know to be true of the benefits of having a student or resident in your office, but it's a nice one-page or reminder of what we really all get out of teaching beyond what we sometimes think of in terms of monetary compensation or lost efficiency in the office. This really focuses on what are the rewards and benefits. If we go back to that main screen, you'll see in the middle where the red box is, a focus of the month. Currently, the website is focusing on this webinar series on precepting and some of the topics that are upcoming. So if you're interested in knowing what the other webinars are in the series, you could go right to Teaching Physician and see what 2 through 6 look like in terms of topics. What you'll have here is every month this changes, and the focus of the month is a brief content on whatever the topic is that's been chosen. If you're a subscriber to Teaching Physician, you'll receive an email each month that includes the information about what the focus of the month is. So when the email comes out, it will describe the focus, and it'll provide a link to the Teaching Physician website. I think one of the things that's been a challenge for us is because we used the old Teaching Physician newsletter, many of our preceptors think, oh, this link's here, I can click right on it and go to the content on feedback, for example, or whatever the focus of the month is. Unfortunately, though, you still need to log in to access that content. So it's really important that your preceptors realize as they come in, if they want to get deeper into what the focus of the month is, they are going to need their login, and they are going to need to be logged in to get to that content. Whether our preceptors follow the link or not, though, to go to the website, what our experience has been is that the emails really remind people that the content's out there. So when we've purchased Teaching Physician and all new subscribers get an email that says, Teaching Physician's been purchased for you by, in my case, the University of Kansas School of Medicine in Wichita, they may forget, they may not have a student at the moment. They may forget that that resource is out there. And the monthly emails just sort of remind them, hey, this Teaching Physician's out here. I should go check it out and see what's on there. So as we go back to our home screen, we've talked a little bit about logging in. And you can see up here in the upper right-hand corner is where your sign-in is. The content on Teaching Physician, other than what you see on the screen now, really is behind a login. I know that that can be difficult because we live in a world where we all have logins to our computers and our email addresses and our medical records, and in some cases maybe we have 3, 4, 5, or 17 logins, it feels like. But the content really does need to be behind that login, and what I found is that although the content is password protected, to reset your password takes less than 3 minutes via email. And I will admit that I often forget my password. I simply type in my email address, send out the forgot password link, and get my password reset in about 3 minutes. So it's still very efficient to use, even if you're not great at remembering what password you set up for this. You can use the Remember Me function on your computer. That also has seemed to help our preceptors be able to remember their login and get to the content they want in the timely fashion they want to get to it. The other thing that's important from this home screen, and you'll notice that the sign-in has changed, and I'm now logged in as myself, and so that the website looks largely similar. You'll see under where the red box is what's new and recently updated. I am amazed at the amount of content that is on Teaching Physician, but I think what's been most helpful to me is that there's always new content being added. So there's new videos that go up, there's new content, and so even if a preceptor or a faculty member has visited the site before, going back again, they're going to find new things. And that's really gratifying to me when I send people there, that I'm not sending them to see the same old site that they've seen before, but there's new things going up all the time. And I like the new and recently updated links just to keep in track and see what is going on and what has been uploaded. Often I'll see things, for example, here on chart simulated recall, which is not something I necessarily do a lot of. So it sometimes will even introduce me to new teaching techniques that I wouldn't have thought to go looking for otherwise. So that's actually very helpful. Okay, so once you get logged in, you'll see a blue bar at the top where you can navigate to various areas of interest, or a screen comes up that says Preceptor Resources, and you can also navigate that way. You'll notice that on the far right-hand side, there's a red arrow that points to where my name is with log out or change password. You do want to make sure that you're logged in as yourself, especially if you're going to be doing any of the CME type quizzes, so that you can get credit for that and so that you can know who's done what. So some people have said, well, why can't I just give everybody the same generic username and password? That won't really work so well in the system. Plus, you'll lose all of the rich reporting function that exists. And so you really do want folks to log in as themselves. So in this case, let's suppose that we were interested in finding out more about giving feedback. There'd be two ways to get there, the taskbar at the top or through the preceptor resources, clicking on the Giving Feedback link. When you do that, you'll come up to what appears to be a screen that is pretty typical of all of these topics. Along the left-hand side, you see that there are 5 different topics under giving feedback. Some is just the general overview of giving feedback, but it also talks about the micro skills, the sandwich model, feedback levels, and how to do mid-rotation feedback. And so you could navigate to whatever particular interest you have. The giving feedback where the red box is in the center, that is a fairly typical example of the quick tips. So if you really just had 5 minutes to log in and find out about giving feedback, you could quickly get some quick tips, a quick reminder of what are the key features about giving feedback, and then go on with your day. And the site was really designed with that busy community preceptor in mind that's already giving up time from their practice to have a student or resident to be able to go in, look quickly at, okay, yes, I remember that that's really important, and then log out again. If you have more time, though, you might choose to look under the resources at some of the other things that would be of interest. So if you're in feedback, you might find it interesting to know about mid-clerkship feedback being effective in changing students' recorded patient encounters, or how to be an efficient and effective preceptor. If you click on those resources, it will link you out to Family Practice Management or Family Medicine or whatever journal that original article appears in. You'll notice right above that what appears to be a video screen, and that's exactly what it is. There are videos with much of the content that will show you examples of how to give feedback, and many of them have both a good example and a better example. So if you want to know, what does this actually look like in practice, this will help you to do that. As we continue on, over here by the mid-rotation feedback, you can see that, well, if we were to click on that then, you would get to the mid-rotation feedback screen. And this is a different example of what it might look like when you click into the content. So for the mid-rotation feedback, you'll see that there's not necessarily a video, but you still have the resources to go to. You still have the quick tips, and you still have all of your navigation features. With the resources, one of the things that I've found helpful is the sample evaluation forms and the sample feedback. So the teaching physician website goes so far as to give you sample comments to show you what might be helpful. Okay, so let's switch and go to a different one. This is the microskills section. You can see that the content here is a little bit longer to get through the 5 steps of microskills. And again, you see the videos and you see the resources. So I think you begin to get the idea of what a typical page looks like. Really, beyond scrolling down one screen, that's about as far as you ever go for your content, so that you can make sure that it is short enough to be useful for a physician. Next, we go into the video library, and what you'll see there is the list of all of the videos. Where I found this helpful is sometimes we're having faculty development for our residency faculty, or we have several meetings a year where our community preceptors get together. And we don't necessarily want to just say, hey, here's a screen, why don't you read all of this stuff? We want to talk with them a little bit more in depth about feedback or microskills or how to evaluate a learner. But we want to use this great video library that we have. Often one of us will log in and play these videos. So if you're ever looking just for the video itself, you can go ahead and go to the video library and scroll through all of the videos that exist to see the ones that might be helpful for you for whatever purpose you're looking for. Okay. One other thing that comes along with your subscription to Teaching Physician, which I think some people forget is out there, is the boot camp modules. Some of you who are active in STFM may have heard about the boot camp modules through other venues, but these are longer 45-minute modules that were created for residents on 3 topics: residence and difficulty, feedback for learners, and pearls of precepting. And I think we'd all agree those are 3 topics that we probably all could use faculty development in on a regular basis. These are actually worth up to 3 prescribed credits from the AAFP, and the boot camp modules come along with your teaching physician subscription. So if you're a subscriber to Teaching Physician, you have access to the boot camp modules. Those, if you haven't ever been to them, look like this. This is just the first page of the one on residence and difficulty, but it links you into a 45-minute, approximately, PowerPoint voiced over website that goes into much more depth than perhaps Teaching Physician does. And having done several of these are actually really helpful and can be really useful to do even as a group with your faculty. I mentioned earlier some of the reporting function, and I do think that that's important. As you go into this last link of reports, and you'll see that highlighted in black on your navigation bar, what you can see on your report as an individual preceptor, if you will, is who offers you the primary account. So we know that in some cases, preceptors may be signed up by more than one university or by more than one residency program, and you'll be able to see there who it is that has bought your subscription for you. You'll also be able to see when their account is going to expire so that you know if when you're going to lose this resource. You'll see that there's a number of quizzes there, and if you've done any of the quizzes, you'll see which ones you've completed. So in this case, you can see that I've completed quiz number 4, which is the CME quiz on giving feedback. This is the report that I can see as a preceptor. The individual who administers our teaching physician subscription, however, can see a much more in-depth report. And she can actually track by individual preceptors and see what they've looked at and when they've looked at it, which has been very helpful to us. We can see then if we happen to go out to a preceptor's office and talk with them about giving feedback, we can see then did they look at that module and take the CME quiz to have a sense of what are they doing, or are they following up and using the resource. It's fairly easy to register your preceptors. You simply click on the preceptor registration link and you'll see that there's a spreadsheet template there. The spreadsheet really consists of a name and an email address, and then you email that off to Melissa Abwell at STFM, and she can help get you all set up with your preceptors. And again, when you click on the register your preceptor link, you can see there that the sign up is different depending on how many preceptors you're going to register, so that if you're up to 20, the subscription is $800 yearly, and if it's an unlimited number of preceptors you're going to register, your subscription is $1,900 yearly. A few benefits of things that I found helpful to talk with about our preceptors, and also to think about in the advantages column when you're contemplating whether or not to spend the money to buy a subscription. The first is that you can get 17.5 CME credits by going through the website and by reviewing the information. That's a really nice thing to offer to our preceptors, to be able to say, hey, you can get some CME by doing this, and it's good faculty development, and it'll help you to be a more effective preceptor when you do have a student or resident in your office. And we talked a little bit about the cost to subscribe already. The other thing that we found helpful is that Teaching Physician can help you with accreditation requirements. So Tom mentioned earlier that my current role is as a program director, and what I found is that, we all know that the ACGME has a requirement that faculty have to have faculty development activities. Teaching Physician allows me to offer faculty development to my faculty, but we don't all have to be together to do it. So if someone can't come to a noon conference, or they can't come to an early morning meeting, they can review the information on Teaching Physician and still be on the same page as everyone else. Some of my colleagues have found it helpful that when they hire a new faculty, they often don't speak the same language we do, especially someone who is new in their very first faculty job. They may not know about the microskills, or they may not know about some of the techniques that we use when giving feedback, or how to effectively evaluate a learner. It would be nice to think that we all had the time to sit down and individually go through all of the faculty development for that, but we may not. And it may not make sense to use our faculty development time to cover those basic topics to get people caught up. So Teaching Physician can often be a resource that you can have new faculty do to make sure that they do have those basics along with everyone else, and they're speaking that same language as they come on to their first faculty job. Now, before I was a program director, my main role was with medical student education, and I directed the clerkship for our family medicine, the family medicine clerkship for our third-year students. And for us, a big reason to have teaching physician was to help meet some of our LCME requirements. You know, we know that we use a lot of community physicians at KU. My students would spend 8 weeks out in a community physician's office. And so it was important that I be able to show that I could give them faculty development and make sure that they were effective teachers for the students, and that I also had opportunities for their professional development. Teaching physician lets me do that. Additionally, we have an LCME standard saying that residents who supervise or teach medical students have to be prepared for their roles in teaching and assessment. And so what you find here is with teaching physician as a centralized activity, you're able to, whether it's a community preceptor, one of your own faculty members, or even one of your residents, you're able to make sure that they can get logged into the system and improve their skills and learn more about how to teach more effectively. So you might have guessed by now, but perhaps it bears being said explicitly, while we bought the subscription for our community preceptors, we quickly realized that our residency faculty and med school faculty who were full-time teachers would also benefit from this. And actually, they've been some of our highest users because they use these skills on such a daily basis. They go back to the basics again and again saying, what can I learn from this site? Plus, with the new content that comes up so frequently, they're able to go back there and really keep themselves current on their faculty development skills. As I mentioned, your administrator is able to pull a report that tells you who visited the site, how often, and what quizzes they took, so that you're able to see who's logging in and who's not. We have not made it a requirement that anyone go into the site, but it is nice to be able to see who is going into the site and how much traction are we getting with some of these topics. That is the major issues that I wanted to address with you today, and I would be happy to answer questions that people have about teaching physician or hear your own ideas if you're a subscriber about what we might, other things that you found helpful. I believe that the way to ask questions, and I'll ask Tom to weigh in here as well, is to go ahead and type them in on your screen, and we'll be able to see those and answer whatever questions that you have.
Yeah, we have about 40 folks out there, and we'd love to hear your questions about teaching physician or how the site came into existence. And I guess, Gretchen, maybe I know one of the most frequently asked questions that we get here at the office is how do you get your login information? It seems like a lot of people really, they get their initial email when they sign up, and then a lot of times don't end up keeping that or lose track of it. And so what's the best or easiest way to get your login information to get into the site?
That is a great question. So I think, as Tom said, let's actually just kind of walk through that process. When we first bought our subscription, we sent, as the university, we sent STFM a list of all of our preceptors and what we thought were their most current email addresses. And they received an email that said, you've been, someone has purchased for you a teaching physician subscription. Go onto the site. Here's a temporary password. Create a username and password. Then many of them did that, and many of them promptly forgot what their password was. So what's important to remember is as long as you know the email that you were signed up with, you can put your email in and click on a forgot password link. And within about 3 minutes, you will get an email from STFM that says, here's your new password. Go in and change it. It's very easy. And in fact, like I said, I tend to do that a lot, having forgotten which password I used for which account. The important thing, though, and one of the things that was sort of a challenge for us is that you have to make sure that you have accurate email addresses. So we had a major health system here who changed from a dash in their name to eliminating the dash. Well, that changed everyone's email address. And so if you forget your password, you need to be able to get to that email account to get your password emailed back to you. Now let's suppose that the worst happens and they can't get to that email anymore, and you say, well, I really do want to get into the site. The folks at STFM I have found to be incredibly helpful. If you call them and say, I'm having a problem, they can often help you figure out what to do next, especially if you have forgotten the email or can no longer access that particular email account. One of the things that was useful is we noticed one preceptor in particular who was a frequent visitor to the site stopped visiting, and when I asked why, it was because they were no longer getting those monthly emails, and they weren't getting prompted to remember, and it was because they had had an email change. So we just needed to go in and change their contact information. That's the other reason to have an accurate email, is that you do get monthly sort of focus of the month emails, and you want to make sure that those are going out there so that people remember, hey, I do have this subscription and I'm able to go out and visit it. And so I think that can be a really important thing for people. The other thing that I probably neglected to say was to talk a little bit about, so what have we learned from this? I have said all along that for us, teaching physician, I will not tell you that my preceptors are on teaching physician every day learning something new. Maybe I wish that they were, but that's not practical. What I see, though, is that when I go out and I visit with a preceptor and I say to them, hey, remember that you have this teaching physician subscription, oftentimes they will go visit the site then. Or if they've had a particularly troubling student, or they've had some experience where they had struggled to give feedback to a learner who was not quite up to par, being able to direct them to the website gives them a basis of some skills that they can sort of tuck into their pocket and use in those situations. And it has led to preceptors being more likely to say yes to me when I ask them to take a student, because they felt like, okay, I've got, the things that I'm really worried about, I've got some tools I can use to deal with those. From a residency faculty standpoint, we've often used teaching physician to just kind of look at some area of interest and start from a common framework. So if we're going to talk about feedback, for example, if we can all review this, it's pretty quick, it doesn't take very long, we can start from a common language and not spend all of our faculty development time going over what is the sandwich model, but really rather talk about how is this going to apply in our environment here today. And that's been very helpful for us as well to really effectively use what's limited faculty development time.
Great question. Great job, Gretchen, answering some of these, that initial question. A couple questions that have come in since you started answering questions. One quick question was, will this webinar be available for future viewings on our website? And the answer is yes, and it will be available on the STFM website at www.stfm.org. The next question was, is the CME approved by the AMA only or only the AAFP? And at this point, the AAFP is our approved CME accreditor.
And on a note on the CME, I know that for many of us, CME is easy to come by, but it is a nice perk to be able to offer our preceptors. And I like it because it's very easy to find on the AAFP website, because that's who accredits the CME. Many of us know that you can go on the Academy webpage and find your CME record, and teaching physician, as soon as you start typing it in, pops right up. You can put in whatever you've done. It makes it very seamless and very easy to keep track of it all in one place. And I think it is nice because there's also some sense, I think, from the preceptors that, it's nice to be able to say, here's this thing that we've purchased for you, and there's CME attached to it. So if that is a concern for you, you are getting something in addition to becoming a better faculty member.
Okay, another question is, does STFM have any information that we can give to particularly the administrators to help explain what teaching physician is? And that's actually a great question, and we're going to get into that in the second webinar in much greater detail on July 23rd, which is entitled Getting Your Preceptors to Use Teaching Physician. But the answer to that question is yes. We are actually in the process of finalizing a teaching physician welcome kit for new subscribers, and we're also going to send it to all current subscribers that will really give you some tools to use, like, for example, a draft of an email message that you can send out to all of your preceptors to give them a heads up about the site, how to log on, how to get their login information. We'll also be providing newsletter copy for you to use in your regular communications with your preceptors. And then we have a brand new teaching physician administrator guide that's really just a two-pager overview of how to use the site, kind of what it means, and some tips on getting your preceptors to actually use the site. And then we'll also have a PDF that we'll be sending out electronically that you can print that you can give to your preceptors when you meet with them or email it to them. But yes, we definitely want to make sure that you, as the program administrators, have the tools that you need to really be able to both inform and encourage preceptors to continue to use the site.
And I think some of those advancements or some of those new things are going to be really important. Our administrator does a fabulous job of keeping updated on who our preceptors are and who is logging, who has access to the site and who's covered on our subscription and so forth. But I think one of the challenges is that how do you get preceptors to really go on the site? And so I think webinar number 2 is going to address that. It sounds like this welcome kit will as well. One of the things that I found very helpful about Teaching Physician is when it started, it was like any new product. It was pretty good, but there was room for improvement, and STFM has been very responsive to feedback, I think, from its users saying, hey, what about this? What about that? It would be better for us if we could have this or that. And so there have been lots of new developments that I think have made the site easier to use both from a tracking standpoint of who's going in, but also from a we're learning more and more about how do you get preceptors to use this? How do you remind them in the appropriate fashion and in a timely fashion? And what are some of the best practices? So it's great to hear that STFM is going to be sharing some of those because I think that we have learned a lot, and Teaching Physician has evolved a lot as we've learned new things.
We have a question about the webinar series and whether or not you already have to be a subscriber to Teaching Physician to participate in the webinars. The answer is absolutely not. Really, the webinars are free and open to anyone, program administrators, teaching physician administrators, but also preceptors themselves. And the first 2 webinars, the one that we're having today and the one that we'll have in about 2 weeks on July 23rd, are really focused more at new teaching physician users or those thinking about subscribing, but also to administrators to help you recruit more, or to get your preceptors to utilize them. The last 4 webinars are probably more geared toward faculty and preceptors specifically. We're going to be doing a deeper dive in some teaching techniques and things that I think will be particularly useful to preceptors. And so, again, you don't have to be a Teaching Physician subscriber to participate. You can sign up for these for free, again, on our homepage, www.stfm.org. I'm thinking that may be, at this point, one more question. Would we offer Teaching Physician on a limited basis, like a trial basis, to give people an opportunity to kind of kick the tires, if you will? And yes, I think we'd be happy to do that. If we could just have you email us at teachingphysician@stfm.org, we can set you up with a temporary subscription, again, to kind of get in and look at it before you make that kind of a commitment. Again, that's teachingphysician@stfm.org.
And I would encourage people who are on the fence about it to do that, because I think once you get in there and see all the content that's there and the videos and the links that are all done for you already, it really does help to say, yeah, I think I can find a place to use this, and this really will be helpful to me. I think it can be hard when you're thinking, I don't know if I want this or not, without actually going in and seeing it and kind of really getting in there and seeing what's all there.
Yeah, and a couple other things that we're thinking pretty seriously about are, one, offering individual subscriptions. Right now, we really only offer this on an institutional basis. So, like Gretchen's institution has a membership, and other hospitals and medical centers have a subscription. But we're really kind of looking at maybe some individual membership opportunities as well. And then the other thing that we're kind of thinking about is offering this on a mobile device. So basically, one of the things, and we're going to talk about this next time, we just did a survey, and some of you may have answered questions. You may have taken the survey, and we certainly appreciate that. But we did a survey of all current Teaching Physician subscribers, and we know for sure that that while everybody really agrees that the content is extremely well done, it's very useful, it's the right kind of content, what the biggest challenge is to using the site is time. And obviously, we're all busy, but preceptors in particular are juggling a lot of priorities and certainly don't always have a lot of time to sit down in front of a computer and really try to to dig in to find out answers to questions. And so we think maybe offering this as an app on smartphones, on mobile devices, might be a way to help make this information much more quickly accessible and readily available to busy preceptors. Question, is there a way we can submit new content to be published on the site? That's a great question. I guess we would love to hear your suggestions. Again, maybe email us at teachingphysician@stfm.org with thoughts or ideas about new content. We are looking at continuing to refresh the content, both take down content that's been around a while and also add new content really on a monthly or every other month basis. But we would love to hear your ideas about how, things that we could add, or if you have content specifically that you'd like to submit. I think that's a great suggestion that we would love to hear from you and be open to your thoughts and ideas, because we certainly don't have all the answers.
I think that would be wonderful if people could do that and would submit ideas, because part of it is the Teaching Physician website was really designed for community preceptors, and many of us who are the subscriber at the institutional level, we don't live that life anymore. And so I think having a sense of, when you hear from your preceptors, boy, it would really help me if I had this, that can be really beneficial. I think one of the early edits was on that piece about mid-rotation feedback. One of the things we heard a lot was that preceptors didn't know what to write on comments, and so they would write something like, good job, which we know isn't necessarily the most effective feedback. And so by giving them some examples of what might effective feedback be, what might have been better for the student or the resident to have, now they had something that they could model off of. And so it was a nice, very quick way that they could look at and say, oh, that's right, this is kind of the example I could follow and go from there. And so I think those things of what do preceptors need, what are you finding that you need, is important. The other thing is I think many of us have started using Teaching Physician with our faculty and our residents as faculty and resident teaching development. And so because of that, I think that that's in some ways created new needs for new content. And with the rapid rate that content gets updated and added to the site, I think that there's lots of opportunities to say, hey, this might be something to look at for the future when the next time we add content.
Well, I think we are at the end of our questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you, Dr. Dixon, for the great job that you did today with both preparing the materials and facilitating both the question and answer and going over your presentation. And thank you to everybody who joined us out there in our first webinar on precepting and teaching physician.